Would you like some?
중요해. Geshe 보겠어.
Geçimbu.
Gestapo della gran sottolic cema Sandre. Not streaming, just recording. Just to have the recording. Not even putting on YouTube.
To make it like a Zoom one.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah, it's on Zoom.
It's on Zoom.
Yeah. So yeah, some classes we did for some people, but this one.
So I think Vika's not coming because she was tired.
Yeah, she said that she's gonna try to come, but she might be late because she still has anesthesia in her teeth, so she cannot feel her mouth. Yeah, she did.
She might drool.
Yeah, I don't have my notebook here. Please.
Hmm?
Have my notebook.
Do you need
want a paper?
No, it's okay. Maybe just one paper and
Yeah.
one pen if you have. It's all I put upstairs. So yeah, I'm also just starting. Don't start and make a mistake. And to testing methods like live are not right. So thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, honey. Someone touched it. Abasu. The tambo. Tangasu manchia. This passing on my shadow. The only game what to this.
First of all, hello to everyone. So today, for the first time, there are a few people that I'm not familiar with here in class. So for this, I thought maybe introducing myself first a little bit.
Yeah, Tangara Duina, Jesate Nipoliti, Poke and Ben Dropashik on changes. Yeah.
So, for example, me, I was born in Tibet. I'm born in Tibet, and I was a nomad in Tibet.
Yeah, then look into
When I was 9 years old, I became a monk.
Yeah, and that Tabachini book and Angasu Gombashure,
And then after I became a monk, when I was 9 years old in Tibet, we have a monastery in my region, and I stayed for maybe 3 years in my monastery.
In a captivity, the chip Sozolo Jong Shuchi and over your day, Chesan Korea. Yeah.
And then at this time, I had the desire to study about Buddhism, but the environment was not so conducive, was not so good for this.
Yeah, and captivity my pay Chunjures, pay Chunju, and a Masu Robakashi, Zindrata, Kashi, and Tuzo, Tamasani, Logong Cheka Jan, Cholosi Tundasi.
And I was very, very small. I was very young at this time. So together with a few of my classmates, a few people from the monastery, we all organized ourselves and we came to India to study. We tried to find a place to come that we could study.
Yeah, the Tambo was situated Gombalia Tombo Twin, Mission.
And when we first went from the monastery, we were four people.
Yeah. Now, Captiti, Tangi Nomada, Pinjazi and Roda, Shabasikan Lavio Maris.
And at this time, my family, my mother, my relatives, I couldn't tell anyone what I was about to do.
Yeah, Hazita, Ani Chito Jase, Shura, Skip Chin. Cook Sigan Malam, the Lere, Captiti, Yami Gomo,
Gamisu.
Yami Gormo,
Oh, that's what it
Yami
says.
Ziate, Sumjachitiang, Tabagimba, Shambasani Yarni, Kumisumjakir.
And at this time, because we were escaping China, we could not tell anyone about our plans. But I needed Chinese money. I needed money to do the travel. So I borrowed from an older monk. Yes, I borrowed 300 Chinese money.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Then
Yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
and samba nyuke yore.
I got a little bit of
chunju
samba,
yore.
a little bit of butter
Yeah.
for the trip.
Ini leon le ne. Yeah, matsu ta gomba yosani. Matana chutini sichile. Yang jamba gomba shore. This such a lere. Chutini silanga basna lays.
So first we went in a bus.
Yeah.
We went on a bus
Finish,
for 2 hours, into another monastery that was
Yeah.
close to our region.
Yeah, the kaptini tini tangi ani. Matsu zamaloya. Gotsiresi. Bangochi.
And then we started the preparation to everything that we would need for the trip in this monastery.
Yeah. Yeah, ani saya tu so langkandores no namuja. Back.
Mokaya.
Yeah. Bangocha,
Ah, that's still Susa. Somebody to the
Samba, yeah.
Gagala Droya.
Yeah.
Sama.
Yeah.
Oh, and then in this place, in this new village, we had to beg for the food. We were begging for the food that we would use, that we would eat coming to India.
Yeah. Sajatele nima ge dere.
I stayed for 8 days in this village.
Di chile ngazu karigonlere truck.
And then we went into a truck. Yeah, big
Chala
car.
jar. Ani ngazu ta sente ta lasa leale nima chusum
And then,
chagonles.
and then after 13 days, we arrived in Lhasa in this truck, like in the middle of the things that the truck was carrying. We were there for 13 days until we got to Lhasa.
Yeah, ani lasa la tangusu ani mi shamba ngazu yanjo tanda gomba chikpa tawa shamba kashi nyam tugre ina lo sinda wonda jambari tsangma lo cheshongda wonda ore lo chichuri tsangma.
And then there in Lhasa, we could meet with other people from our monastery. There were also people who were already there in Lhasa, but they were all about similar age. They were all very young.
Yeah, dine lasa la ngazu dawa chila shiliya ani pangoche sagondo so shamba so kala sama lanjo so sa ta kante dine shi dawa chik states.
And then for 1 month, I stayed in Lhasa, and during this time, we were all begging in the streets. So we would usually eat the rest of the restaurants, the rest of the food that they gave to us, and we would eat for 1 month.
Yeah, ani dawa chik chile ngazu ani ya tinge chiraris. Guide. Ilam galia tinge tini chikliya ani lhasa yobi kamla ngazu nami akwasha kwane yami yin chikdong chikrishas. Gormo chikdong
And then after I was in Lhasa, so after 1 month, we could find a guide to guide us to India. And then in Lhasa, then I informed my family and I asked them for money. Can you please send me 1,000 so I can go?
Yeah, maso nami gormo chikdong Himalaya tangre gormo chikdong ngabjate lamtila lachate ngabjate chia andre chalande nyu ni le jores.
And then actually, I think it was 1,500. So this 1,500, I gave everything to the guide. And then with the other 500 that I had saved, then I could buy food, I could buy clothes, I could buy the other things that were necessary.
Yeah, dini chani, dini ane talasane ishapo chilia, ane personale, dini komba jamne, dawa chida nimangas komba jamne.
And then from Lhasa, then we got a bus from bus. And
Yeah, first day, one night.
Just one night,
one
the
day,
bus.
yeah.
And then we started walking. And then walking, it was a month and 5 days.
Yeah.
Walking.
Ani tamale, nibali
And then
jores.
finally we got to Nepal.
Yeah. Tayana di lamgal pe kaletia da mambushia yores, dina dati so matititse bito.
And then if I tell about the stories also of this time ongoing, a month and 5 days, and there are many stories, many difficulties, but then we don't have time. There's no need to talk about this.
Yeah, teni kuchukopshilo, enjore,
And then in
kuchukopshilo.
1994, I got here, I got to India.
Ani kaptik lo cholando, lo byongche.
And then I went to South
Yeah.
India where I did my studies in the monastery in South India.
Yeah, ani ni don chobjele ya. Ta sangma Geshe, ta sangma tene ni don chobje turis.
And then just now in 2018, I finished my studies in the monastery.
Yeah, tene ni mo tu tene
So
shiris.
this is in brief my introduction. This is my life story for you to know me.
Yeah, then yeah. And that ring on Sudima Tiet. So, Kazangan and also Lam-Rim court, yes, Tia, Kachore, Timanis, Tirans, Timanis.
So now we're going to keep going down with our study of the text. So we had a class for 2 times now, and we talked a little bit about the Lam-Rim. Now we're going to continue with the topic.
Yeah, Tachino Lam-Rim said the book get again on Lam-Rim 6. Lamzi on the Chitani than Drasa Lamga to Kachir. Then Drasa Lamga the Rimba, Tachiko Levant Rimba Mabushur, Tikachit Shiores.
In Tibetan, when you talk about the word Lam-Rim, that's the name of the book that we're studying. Lam means a street, like a place that you have to go, a path. Yes, a path. Rim means the steps, so the stages of the path. So this is what's talking about, the stages of the path.
Tandi Rimba can Shiores, the Rimba the Shadiam, Matsu, Tasuso, Samlo Rimba Kokores. Chikso gom ta nyamlenda tini chekal matso ta chik nangi shin shura ti ramba jotang shikres.
And how we have to understand the stages they're not outside, they're stages inside, is the stages of thinking, the stages of the inner education that we have to go through in the path.
Yeah, chochini samlo tang matso ta chik ni nambi ta tup nang pe mambo shu song sha yore te tsama den tar tuina ta chi matso nangi shin zena ta te ya jin ro ya te kanri chin ya ne ya ji tang tung tu.
So usually in Buddhist philosophy, there are many different canons, many different schools, many explanations. There's a vast amount of information. And where does this all meet? What's the purpose of all these things? They're all for this inner education. They're all to bring us somewhere, to take us somewhere inside.
That indeed, Geshe gave Kablia, Tangos, Chitang Samlo, Tangchok, Rambati Shiv Kablia, Tangozo Samlos in and Shiba and Namjatelia, Rumba Karkara Yore, Titsu Gangbe, Egypt Sabin ship Mobu Japshires. Shipping Namjale, Eva Kario Simtas in
And when we talk about these stages being stages that happen inside the mind, that happen inside of us, then we also have to analyze what is the mind and what are the functions of the mind. We have to analyze what is inside. And then there are many presentations, many explanations too about what is the mind and etc. in Buddhism.
Tambo Deshe Karajaris and Atsu, Mikimashi, Matsu, Taranshing, Marsole Ranjin, Tajik, Shibi Navja, Yavicha, Kanendo, Divicha, Sinatra, Tidikartu. Yanachi Yawa, the Diakai, my image, Paramando Kartu. Tindig Navja Mambosh gets into Chin, Sheshires.
So the first way that those classifications happen when we start to study the mind, then we look at the good sides, good states of minds, the bad states of minds, and also neutral. We usually make this distinction in Buddhism.
What is it? Also, Ranjingi, Yamago, Tambo, Michi, the Kardusi,
So first analyzing before training, before doing anything with our mind, as soon as we're born naturally, what is in our mind? What is here inside?
Yeah, Tinin Deshe gave Kable, Tambo, also Ranji Yawati Mozo, Ranji Yawatilian, Jokartan, and the Yawa Karish, Magua Karish, what Tindi Namshat She. Tatindi Tambo, Mozi, Tambo, Lopsente, Pen the Suchitre, the Gomba Kaina, Titata, Lorixia, Tarixia, Tatambo, Losims, Loni, Tati Gomba, so sorry, Kashiloni, Takash, Tindi counted on Pachores, Tindi count of Josie.
So the first thing that we do, we're going to analyze what it's natural in our minds, what is already here inside of our minds. And then after we understand our minds, then we can see what should we develop, what should we avoid, what should we decrease. For example,
Tambo Ranjing, Misosole, Samlozia, Ranjing Chani, Yawa, Dua, and each quatele Yawanda Mambo Karkario Mede. This will love in Sun on Yonshi, Tambo, Yanka. Tambo Didata, this will Didata Lori Cablia.
So, for example, in the monasteries, we first started to study, this is a book of the collected topics. And also in the second year, we have the mind and mental factors. So all of these studies, the purpose of starting with this is to see what is the basis, what is already here inside, even without training, what is already happening in the mind.
Yeah. That indeed tambo thing so rangi what was on savage. That is your cartando. So chindo ya cardu ya yajitan carriores on the touch gomgrambas at the shinitish.
And then only after we have identified the state of our mind right now with untrained mind, then comes the explanations on how to meditate, how to habituate the mind in a different way, what to improve, what to decrease.
Yeah, Tindi in the shed Yavikavla, Tini Lam-Rim the Kachate, Tinishi Lam-Rim.
And that's when you get to the Lam-Rim. That's when you get to this text, when you're explaining how to train these minds.
Yeah.
What
They only touch it on the Lam-Rim Lam-Rim said, Pe Mambo Yares. This should be the Mambo Sonsa in a Sama with Tonda Papsade, the country chinang as Samla the Yaji Kantantur. Yaji Tansi on the touch sympathy. They take Cholea condition. So say she did Pape Mich. Paki, Yanchi Kangando, Samla Kangazion, the country Sego, some Muyeteres.
So usually there are many Lam-Rims, there are many explanations of this kind. There are many Lam-Rims, but they all fall into a certain place. And what is this place? What is this thing where they meet? Is explaining how to change your way of thinking, how to improve your way of thinking in a better way, how to decrease your ways of thinking that are not beneficial, they're not good for you.
Yeah.
Did it?
Yeah. Ani tatindi kola shivi kavle ta kasangele nga sulap senti na karjo yaresena tanga so tsama tambo ni musaji na so shiun tsama so rangjing ge xie yo mare ni shamba chile ni shamba sani kyang wati nya le pen kar yorese lopse moma na tosare.
So something that we were discussing in previous classes is there's nothing that we know, there's nothing that we don't come into this world knowing something. We don't come here with already education. So everything that we know, we have to listen from somewhere. We have to study. We have to have this input in order for us to know about it. So in the previous classes, we were discussing the benefits of listening, the benefits of studying.
Yeah, Tationg the Taina chick and a so with Pakishambas and a young Kavlia. Young Ruba young in Yokoshia than Koyan Luluyan Tinidion series. In a tamboni summer, Shambala to the Mago, but summer she gives you worse. Shambala Shambas and the Shambas and young Kavlia. Young Kashin Joko Shinjonge, so
Yeah.
Because it doesn't go at the Leon series. Summer Shinge Tamboni, Tapachi missing.
And then, of course, when people are studying, and when people go to listen, there are people who understand very quickly. There are people who it's a bit harder to understand. It takes a little bit more time, but there's no one that from the start already knows everything or doesn't need to rely on other people in order to receive education and then learn and improve themselves.
Yeah, that three months of Sende Carresonde, that Shambala Nian pay your as a gauntlet central sare. That Nibi Kavle condition Yengukre.
So today our class, so before we already discussed the benefits of listening or of studying. So now what we're going to do, we're going to see actually how to proceed with this, how to listen.
Yeah. Tandeli Yontra Chichina Juso Mambosh Lobionchi Tsayo Sigrikashi. Then they non choose in the Tanambi Tato Gala. No Jusum Zesh. No Zetus was some local, some lole Junsum Zetisha.
So we're going to a presentation that it's famous, so maybe some of you have already heard of this, have already studied about this. So it's called the three faults of the vessel. So the vessel here must be understood as our mind or our thinking. So it's going to be the three faults, the three defects, mistakes of our thinking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Nuji Josum say Kavle, Tambo Carres on the Tambo Chimishambaji, and things in Chushia Kachagomar, Lobion Kandichin, Majambaji, and his son is also in Sich Kolia, Kazota, 아니 그저 가르치고는 롭신 코르티오나레 카운터 그런 조시 가리는 잡아요 말해. 텔레베 아니 야보시 닝고 그랬어야 돼.
So the first thing is to put it briefly, this is not just about the Dharma, this is not about studying Buddhist philosophy, any topic that you're going to learn. If you're going next to someone, if you're going to learn from a teacher, you need to listen well. To put it briefly, you need to listen well.
야 아니 티 가르세온데 티 돈다 가르선 거잖아. 미치고 빼 직전에 그빼 소설 펜토가 원이 시가 시그레스. 이나 전에 되기 시야들 돈은 걸어 맞잖아. 그 가르치잖아. 맞어. 소설 삼으로 나치긴 주고 말했어.
For example, maybe there's something that someone is explaining to us or is teaching us that it's going to be beneficial for us, but it's useless. It's completely useless if you're sitting there and you're not paying attention. You don't have any attention towards this. So it's like it cannot go inside your mind, whatever he or she is explaining.
야, 대텔이야. 배시다 누카바바세야지. 누치거나 누디 나 저런 게 가르리나 류야 가르이나 잡아요 말에 줄이나 잘리나 카운터. 너도 카야치니 카마치나 너도 카마 아니 밤니 디강을 같이 루션 나오는 지우 말텐도.
So here the example of the vessel is going to be a vessel turned upside down. So if you have a vessel turned upside down, you can put water, milk, Coke, Sprite, anything. It's not going to go inside. It's not going to go inside. So the first thing that you have to do is to open your vessel.
어디 돈다 가르잖아. 배야부 सबसे नींग 거래세. 다 돈다 들. 좋아.
What's the meaning here is to listen very carefully. To be careful when you listen.
티 견치 가는 용건도 있으나 티 매니아들이야. 다 지난데 원래 용도 용 그랬지. 매니 견치 가는 건 삼삼을 넘센치 콜레 소소 때스 장사나. 다 대등이 쉬어요. 삼삼 닝고에 매서 삼죠. 근데 삼로 지게 그랬어.
So then here the mistake that would come would be not listening at all. So you go somewhere to study, you go somewhere to listen where you have this opportunity, and then you decide, oh, it's not necessary to listen, or you don't listen.
야, 다이나야 다양치 조칭이 배 섭섭시원 년배 왕다 배 시우야 보 년거스. 년거 요래다 년 근롱데 잠마면나. 다 미치게 지 소소야나 마가사시나 카운터. 거기 마치 시비가블 텔링이 쥐견지지마 잡고텐 텔가바시죠. 딘디 걸로 마로 걸로 잠마면조식. 얘나 어딘지 그 말이지. 이바들.
So let's say that, okay, you're listening very carefully, you're very concentrated, and you're absorbing what the person is talking about. But if you don't have a good motivation, if when you're listening to the teaching or the explanation, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to find something wrong with what he's saying. I'm going to find something wrong, and I'm going to debate with him, or I'm going to expose his faults. So if you have this motivation, that's also not appropriate.
Yeah. Tati kabla karsina taki sosa samlo de nale chikunye de ka sabsa shunye de samlo nan zigo ro. Samlo nan zigo yore de zhe de kurno de yapo ji me de chik samlo de tsama yo maris ka shikr da ka. Kurno tsama men jo shikr shikr. Ti yang pe ke no chile ya nale tuma kan yo jo shik nale karlik de na chima ti de. So the
example here is going to be, okay, you're listening very carefully, you're concentrated, so the liquid is coming inside your vessel, it's entering. But because you have this wrong way of thinking, you're thinking in a way that's not appropriate, you have a bad motivation, so it's like your vessel is dirty. So if you have a dirty vessel, this whatever goes inside is also going to be dirty. For example, if you pour tea inside a cup and this cup is dirty, it's not going to be beneficial for you to drink this tea.
In church, if you come down, correct solo query, so Yaji down, so Yajin to other Yaponian going in Bache. This is Chigni, the Michilimoni, Jonga, Fiki Pasho, the Kapashi Jaguana. Pay Yaposhi, Nibanian Goers, Michili, Janjagona. Junji Michik Shetama and two other Michigan obtain the Karina Tikon, so Gapa Jando and Yapu Nibanian Gorema, Gabajab Togmara. They have the church in the Shula de Anquay Gres.
Yeah,
Wow.
do you agree?
Chidang soso yajin
Good,
roya la,
good.
soso yajin roya la, yapo nyen gwa jisha che,
Right.
soso shiyun jaya la. Shiyu soso yajin roya sawla mango ni michel gapa jagwa sabla yung. Nyeper nyen gwa
And
resi,
then here
tonda
from one side, we can also get the meaning that even not talking just about improving yourself, that you're listening to learn something, to improve yourself. Of course, you need to listen very carefully. But even if you want to find faults in someone, even if you want to debate, or if you want if you have this motivation, you also need to listen very carefully.
pena michiki chik, ane tamshet chiwa, yana karina. Ko tambo shiya ningwa ninjuk pe tsama, yapo ji manya na, chutele pa chiga ni gapa ji jam chena ya. Cha tsama ji chagumendo.
For example, let's say someone is giving a speech, and if you don't listen from beginning, middle, and end, you cannot really expose it. If you have a opinion that's not in accordance with what the person has said, and you want to expose your opinion and disagree with the person, if you have not listened from beginning, middle, and end, then you cannot really do this. You cannot just give your opinion without having listened first.
Ta sambade karzena ta tambo pe yapo nyechi, nyembe kable yapo nye te pe kulung tsama, chano pe kulung yapo chi wang tang ya, tenpa le yapo maja na, te yang tenpa le suso yapo, nya tapshi macha na, an jopo jenchu kres, te jesong te yang, ane taki nun toji na, no te tsama chi, no kaya chi, no tsama chi, no shabdolwa si, shabla ya. So
the third one is going to be, okay, you paid attention, you're listening very carefully, so the water is coming inside. You have a very good motivation to do the listening, so it's not dirty, it's not polluted by your bad motivation. And not only that, but also you try to keep in your mind, in your memory, whatever you're learning. So if you don't do this, then it can be very quick that you're going to forget all the meaning, everything that you learned. So in this example, in the example of the vessel, is going to be, okay, the vessel is turned upside up. So the teachings go inside, so you're listening carefully. The vessel is clean, and also the vessel has no holes in the vessel, which will make it forget.
Ta kande yo resi yondi, ta wana, ta soso le ma tsule chik lo zin kare yana, ti tramba yakpo de yala tapshi kare yo resi.
So any lesson, anything, any class that we're learning, any topic, what is a method for us to not forget?
Yeah, tramba ta to tramba jopo jemandra, ta tramba tsa ni meje de yong si umarwa.
So maybe it's not possible. Sorry, maybe it's not possible for you never to forget, but just for you not to forget it quickly, easily.
Yeah.
So then this can be a question for you. Do you know what can you do so you don't forget so easily? Do you have any opinion?
No, okay. I feel that when I try to put myself, like when I'm listening, and to try to like feel what the other person is feeling. Now it's difficult a little bit because of the language, but still I try to watch carefully how his face looks, how the body language. So then I get also like a feeling, and feeling helps you to not forget. I think.
Yeah, the Tapshi Tate Karatina, Tandate, Susu Michile, Tamshan Roina, Karin, Yembe Kablea, Susu Savzania Maze, Pashoti Shetan, Pashoti Namjiri, Sama Kanglea, do not yeshtua. On the edition of the paint to the Karte, so in Java Karchagrisana. Susu and his sympathetic, the other down, and the tea cup can read on Java Korea. I should meet in Namja Karish. So I can't see to attend away not a day, not tend away not again, no chicho and the tambo best, sympathetic and get on reach hours. They encourage your stitched and being but some maze, any 거기 소화던 제가다 소화되어 다던데 거기 미기 시던데 참만 쿠리던 제가다도 드레스네.
Yeah, so as you said, and it's related also to the first thing here of listening well, listening very carefully. So you're not only paying attention. Sorry, I got distracted. So you're not only paying attention to the words and to what he's saying, but also paying attention to feelings and things. So this makes your mind more concentrated. Also, and yeah, I think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, tiendoina tanda taki tambo tsechi Ani shamba
Yeah, so there is this of being concentrated, of having your mind very stable. Does anyone know if there's any other method for this?
Meditating, like being able to meditate and contemplate on the information after to be able to experience it within your mind and not just keep it superficial, but be able to experience it within you.
아니 토이치랑가 연삼공 숨쉬나 아니 미체랑가 되어서 두비에 인디 양 제가 때봤어 야들라와요.
야 다때 저 직당번이 되네 당보 직녀 갑래 앞에 기침문이 직지 뒤지네 와서 양내한테 대 강래야. 직 reflect. 시가 양내한테 대 강래야. 제대다 공지. 대원은 남비 따르 강래 시야대 당보 두고 둔종. 이니 삼종성대 대인비 진세서로다. 삼종
센서는 그래서
somebody garden ti kan gomse gomjung
young
te pe ki chimbu spe ki sa chimbu tsiris to some tunjong samjong gonjong se sim.
Yeah, so these three, they're very important. Yeah, the listening, the reflecting, and the meditating. So yeah, first you need to listen very carefully. You have to have concentration, attention. You want to sit here, maybe? Okay. And then the thinking is going to come thinking about reasons. So more reasonings behind what you have listened. And the meditation is going to be not only listening, for example, during class, but also bringing to your mind repeatedly during the day and after. So in Tibetan, this word gom, which is said meditation, is also the word for habits. So making this a habit in your mind is going to be also the meditation.
Yeah, ta tambo tunjong chi samjong kavle ta ki sona shire. Ko jinsen de sablo mabata ta jinsen de jeni sablo tang kordini chin gom tamale ya jinsen la jinsen magoba so ngang ya sablo te gomjong se te ta te lamsa nga chole to ma te rembi rambi te ko ya.
So first, yeah, there is the for example, the listening, where you listen, and then when you get to the reflection from these three ones, listening, reflection, and meditation. When you get to the reflection, then you need to apply many reasonings. Then you need to think about it and analyze, and you apply reasonings. When it becomes meditation, when this process of analysis becomes meditation, then there is no reasoning being used, and there is no reasons. It just comes spontaneously. It comes much more spontaneous to you, and then this thought comes spontaneously, and then you habituate yourself to this conclusion of the reflection.
Yeah. Ta pena sima tsi chik te tea ti nga chole ya jamba pe temo tea la kanji pen to krese. Pena nga so chik samsam yang na so so ane shina shi chimu ya ro. Yang na samsam pe sho ane chik semba gabo ro tenri chung ya ti so te nga so chik jimai na yang se namsa temba sukto.
And then what are the benefits for us to have this concentrated mind in one point? This mindfulness. So we have the experience sometimes we are very scared. We're very scared, or the opposite. Sometimes we have very good emotion. You can see that it's very easy to remember these events. When we have these emotions, then it's very easy to recall these emotions over and over again in the future.
Yeah, tati karesena pena temba siate maso chochin samlo dana temba la ne mane siate. Asu wansurnga. Wansurnga den dire yona mena. Karesena wambo nga asu sita sakarina. Nyama takpa pe tsor degra ta sama tento gumda. Wansonga shita samlo menjo pe yana shen chu shu jia. Yana pe gawa shu do tele kala ichi shiba su wani je kaptro. Tindi de pe tramba yabo de do. Tiyan de chusa samna wansonga ti temba shasa shasa. Temba dandre yore.
And then it's very interesting if you also think, what is this memory when you talk about memory? Because we can ask if it's related to the five senses, the five sense organs, the five sense consciousnesses. But we cannot remember everything that we have seen during the day. We don't seem to register in this way. And there are some things, some emotions, some thoughts that come to us, some mental events in our life. For example, this very fearful or very, very loving, very, very nice emotions that cause us to have a very, very strong memory. So we can ask, where is memory located? In the five sense consciousnesses or in the mental consciousness? Right?
Yeah.
Inam Shila, you know.
Ichi shiba se sho.
Ish.
So ichi shiba dandre yon ketish. Ya ta tuanda di kamle ngaso kar koko dosena. Andi lopsin di ngaso le ya. Kar lapcha jagayor. Suso kar ina tangbo ya poshi. Simba tenko krese, janko krese, chilche. Tenga kalon tsama shi krese. Tenga jansa de daze, jana de jama shawa yang de simba tenchi. Ya bo nya krese.
So first, so basically, what's the advice here of this part of the Lam-Rim? It's going to be listen firmly. Not only that, but have a good motivation when you come to listen. And third is going to be not only listen just for listening and then you live here and it's gone, but also bring it to mind. Make the habit of bringing it to mind over and over again so that it's stable in your mind.
Yeah, tambo pe so ya bo nya de che. Yang ya pakare na lo byong kare chen pe simba tse chik ten jang ko ya. Te jang ko le kolon sang ma ko. Ko tini tamati tanda ni. Yang de ko na sel dir.
So that's it. That any topic that you study, any kind of study, so have a one-pointed mind when you're listening, a good motivation, and also bringing it to mind again and again to make the memory strong.
Yeah. Taina ta chik tang zo chik kar jana sama kolon sama gore go ma ri der ta tio.
So
So
then
lega kale na
we can
kalon ya
have
posh ko
the question. We're saying here any kind of studies, but for any kind of studies, do you need a good motivation to engage in any kind of job, any kind of work and studies?
Te ta gore go ma ri se na chi su kong se wa. Kong se. Tini kolon sama jingi par ko re se te. Muntu che to sa ma ri.
So can you agree that what do you think? You think it's necessary to have a good motivation to any kind of studies or no? Is that important? Yeah, I think so.
You don't?
I don't know.
Ena da te song tindi yora ta nda ma da yora ta ko so shirab ya ji ta ya. So rupa pe ya po. Samno ti chi kare na sa to pe mo bo che to do. Ina kono ya ji ko ya chi mo ta chi. Ma ja ina re ma tu ja ina kare na te so.
Nowadays
Simba se chi te worda.
there are many topics, for example, that you have to learn in the world that you need to have a very good intelligence. You need to use your reasoning very, very strong. You need to be very concentrated, but it's not necessary. For example, like in the army or I mean, all other kinds of jobs, they don't seem to consider it as important. It's important that this first one, being concentrated, is important. The good motivation is not talked about as important. Yeah.
Yeah. Chigni nga so ta chi kare na ja je den sama so go re ta yang ko. So ya survive che go ra. Sama. Ti chi kali pen den sim. Den dir chen ni no ya so go do. Ti kable den dir competition. Tindi ji na le kable ya king go sama le shena sama kono ya po gore se na. So cha ka shi koro chuto e kono me do. Kono sama ji che de na.
For example, also for our survival as a competition, as a species too, we can think if having a good motivation would be beneficial or not. For example, we cannot kill others, and sometimes that maybe that's not so good for the competition of the species. with a good motivation.
야, 다이네.
Yeah,
야. 얘는 단대를 가르치는 데는 대 송거열했어. 단단히 놓치 줬음세. 가르치는 송거열했어야 돼요. 단디가 수직 소소가 삼러나야. 강에 소소 삼러래 되지. 강에 이렇게 용어를 타야. 소소 되지 저대 pap에 미 약보지 차야. 지금 세트는 된 바세시도. 단디가 삼러 당게. 로야 양계지나 데크론 등이 벌거래서.
but then here, of course, the context here is going to be for someone who is trying to listen in order to improve the mind in this direction of peace and happiness. In this direction of peace and happiness, and also to in a meaningful life, in order to find meaning in life, and then this becomes more important. Yeah,
야, 삼로 야지 타야나.
yeah.
삼로 지금다 딘디기시데 딘디용하나.
Yeah, to improve your thinking, to think in this way that's going to be peace and happiness, then motivation becomes an important factor to achieve this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Wouldn't then this positive motivation prevent us from choosing some topics to study? Like, if I have the good motivation to not kill people, I would not study in the army, no?
Pinanga gunonsong poyona pinanga magmila lobjonche chegime ani nga gunonsong poyona ni lobjonshen pa de tsong manzugimin di pento yomerebe tabare.
저데 간에
Your question is if it wouldn't be if it would be beneficial, then because
I think when we have the good motivation, we wouldn't study every topic. Because a lot of topics with a good motivation, we realize is not a good topic to study. That's like my thought.
gunonsong po jigana ni lobjonjoshi tsama la lobjonche yomare kensna joshi kashila kashe mission pada no jo chegire aba chegire dinge samsure.
야, 티와마로 티와레.
It's a question.
Yeah, if it is like this, or if it's still like, would we still say, yes, go to the army and study being in the army with a good motivation? Or would we just say like, oh, if I have the good motivation, I just wouldn't go there at all?
진짜 대표는 so 진 magmi jigana ani okirang mami dilan sha ani kiran di lobjonche ani yana ngana so gulong sampo jigana ni mami kyone mache.
텐데 말이 이세야 돼. 이 마음이 이세야 이 막 세 마트 야야로 되니까 싫어. 나도 마음이 용치야 점수게 그런 뒤자 예상 방에 띵고 뭔지 말다.
무슨 책을 말해.
그런 아니 소소야 그런 상보시는 좀 가르치나. 그 뒤야 아니 펜도를 마도티 느끼자 시고 말.
Yeah, so that's not exactly what I was saying. Also in the army, I don't think I can say that in the army to be a soldier you need to have a bad motivation. I think also if you have a good motivation, it can be beneficial, even if you keep studying there, if you keep doing this work.
되다. 배는 마음이 지나 그런 야보지나 마음이 좀 제고 말했으니까 참 말했어. 이셔야 돼. 그런 야보용 것이나 좀 가르치나요. 그거는 그디나야 쉽게야 되그랬어. 좀 야보시고.
Yeah, so it's not like if you have a good motivation as a soldier, then you have to stop as a soldier. You have to stop in the study. I think what I was saying is that if you have the good motivation, then it can be beneficial. It can be a good influence in whatever you do.
Yeah, 로종 그런 야보시가 그런 야보용 것이나 마음이 좀 제고 말했어. 그렇게 말했어.
Yeah, it's not that if you have a good motivation, then you have to stop studying as a soldier, in the army.
Yeah, 로종데 가서 삼자고야 때 말했어.
Yeah, you don't have to leave these studies.
삼자야 말했어. 그러니까.
삼자야 말해. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was also confused by this. So if, in conclusion, we should have good motivation in every topic we like in every topic we want to learn, even if even if we're listening to someone and his words are like they have like negative influence, we still I as a listener I can have a good motivation. I don't necessarily need to agree with him. So maybe it's like two different things.
Katui na yang di tu dushina katui na yang di gulong sampo geshe po yere na nganin tui gabla pena mission pa jig di konjo shi jichinangi mutu kalen tu kime ina yang gulong sampo yogore pe katui na yang di dushina dire pe
미직 아니 랍생 가찬로지 다 소소 나와 만들어는 신나야 소소 그런 상부 이번에 연구를 해야 돼.
yeah katui na yang di geshe po
야, 다 초칭이 맞춰가 가장 안에 같이 됐잖아. 소소 그런 게 그런다 소소 상로 단축 버셔든 저만 보시다도 그랬어.
so kare
소소 삼로다 그런 대당 버셔고에네 지금 경제에 있는데 양내 직니 그요나 되더니 군인 대화시고 열었어. 이와 당야. 벤저식 좀 그래. 초칭이 버셔디 가짜지나 가짜디 저런 게 약보진 되다 민두세야 돼. 저런 거즉 베길이야 가르쳤다. 들이야 아니 센든세야 돼. 저 저런 게네 들이 컨디션다 맞다시 된다 그랬어.
medita
야 컨디션 아니 저런 게 삼로 땅 초를 라리 그랬어. 대하고서
jagligren
베나 아니 베나 미치까지 시기요나 미치까지 시기요나 같이 결혼에 년보시 중담 결혼 그때 액셉트 맞이해서 돼. 초진이 결혼 그 상로 땅 초는 내가 저 그랬어. 그래서 결혼 그 컨디션 티강래 년당 컨디션이요. 결혼 때 고아 컨디션이 말에 대인 대화식 좀 열었어.
ni dashik chen po ni
Yeah.
kirangi gulong ani kon karishe
대인 대화식 좀 연구했어.
so
그래서 촉촉.
so
Yeah.
So you're saying that, yeah, when you go to listen to someone, you correct me if I'm wrong. When you
Yeah.
listen to someone, then whatever the person is saying and your motivation for listening to it, they have a very strong connection.
Yeah. 파쇼딩 원래 제다 토다 마토 미치 같이 시외나. 디소소 문제 제다 토 마토세야 돼. 아니 자탄바 파쇼딩 문제 짐 롱아시그레베. 양의 결혼 게 아니 결혼 게 싸우러 땅땅시래지. 뒤와래 딱디.
Kirangi samdo tantangare.
알아요. 양의 파쇼기 시야도 뭐니 자원이 덴바 민조시그레베. 양의 결혼 게 덴바 문제 나와데. 결혼 게 싸우러 땅 초는 되어 차 그래.
So then if you have a kirangi gulong sampo jigana,
Yeah,
if you have a good motivation, yes. If you have a good motivation, then even if it's someone that you don't agree with and that you're listening, then you have more space to think whether what this person is saying is maybe 100% not true, or is something that there is any connection to the way you think. Okay.
Yeah. 당연히 베이직이요.
For example, one
Okay.
example to this is
옛날 미치가 있다 렉처로 같이 직시가 왔지.
so
오케이. 맞으면 미당 전디는 연계 정말 콜리닝게 같이 시행인게지. 당연하나 그까지 시도는 나왔더니 로어 말아. 이제는 그 시바도 뺀 노조래라. 나 저도 정말 거기까지 시할 뺀 나온다. 다시 템바레제 톰포티어리. 나도 니 템바레 저도 템바레.
So
Okay.
for example, let's say there is one person talking, one person is explaining something, and we're all here listening to this person. And then I am listening and I'm thinking, oh, I don't like what this person is saying. You know, it's not right at all. It's completely mistaken. But then I look around and you people, you're liking what this person is saying. You seem to be enjoying what this person is saying.
Yeah.
So I can ask myself, is it true what I'm thinking? Is it true what you're feeling, what you're thinking?
야, 단 삼삼을 딘디기다 평소 가디나 삼삼만 담아 연구요.
So yeah, so in any time we're going to have different opinions, different way of thinking.
대 같이래서 근데 대 딘디기 삼삼만 담아 연구 시야도 같이 집어 고미 시야를 잡아요 말 시야도 그런 같이 시샤래 디 그런 집어 시야 맞아 그런 상만을 시야도 집어 이나 수수가 될 거알인다.
Hmm.
수수가 답초 앵글 만들어.
Yeah, so we all have these different backgrounds or just different opinions about everything, and not all of this is only coming from the side of the person who is explaining or who we're listening to. So this person is saying the same words, the same things, but the way that we understand it's so diverse because we're all coming at it at a different angle. So in this way, there is a strong relationship between your listening and the person speaking.
Yeah. Pasho subject object ni pendrashik chupcha.
So the subject and object in this relationship have a very strong relationship.
Kanga kare yoresen. Ta ngaso te sit dembarisi tacho chakanda. Ko shinjo de ngoni norjorebe, yana nge tatang de norjorebe, yana mali shamba tsu tatang de norjorebe. Ta te kale kasho te ngonyo tsawa tere.
So then the most confusing thing, the hardest thing when we come to the situation is analyzing and being sure is what the person is saying is wrong. Am I wrong? Are you wrong? Because the way you're looking at this person, like what's wrong, that can be very hard.
야, 다 딘디 갑리 야 ngaso kare 갖고 고도 세나. 초치는 ngaso sipo koro tapcha 강니 자고 말해. 예. 지금 physical level 에 local. 대나정 samlo mental level
So from one side, the first thing we can think about is our physical body has many differences. Our physical constitution is very different. Our minds, inside our minds, there are many differences here. It's very different. Yeah, our backgrounds are different. Our traditions, our family is different. The way that we were raised is very different.
Yep, then I check look down the lobda korum kori korum manda chungro. Tindi one get a shikim mambo shing so tatongan. To some yores.
And also our the schools we went to is different, and in the schools they have different ways of teaching. So all of these things together, they become factors that are playing their role while we're listening to something. And all these things are going to change the way that we look at and we perceive what's being said.
Yeah, they on the tanda ani chik chochini and yeah, nambi tatum kani the shake up and the dimbani kacha the tindichin lenjures. Dimbani. Yeah.
So, and coming to the side of Buddhist philosophy, this is a way. It's through this that the two truths they're explained: conventional truth and ultimate truth.
Yeah, the Karchin level is on the Penat Kuzuk and Namshashi on the town, Bongas, Kyungri, Chikoran, Pegitalia, Tatan is down the Susan Rapi, Nabjak on the Karatukudusi, Koranch.
And then in the level of the conventional truth is going to be where all these things they're playing a factor, they're playing the role, all these influences, all the background, they're changing the angle that we see reality. They're giving us this personalized look into reality.
Taina, the Rabin Nabjati, Korabaji gun, Penawasati, Tandenito Chala Chile, Takabla, Rabin Nabjagani, Tadena, the Chibu, Koranga, Chit, someone the sheet of the Umaris.
So to say in a very coarse way, in a very simple way, for example, when you look at something, first we cannot see or explain all the characteristics, all the things about this thing.
Yeah. They only time tap chosen by Chinjawatan, chosen by Chinitana, Taku money in a tongue, any the trouble gone at that such a level gone.
Okay, and if you look at it in a very coarse way, in a superficial way, and if we look in a more deeper way, then we can get more subtle qualities, more subtle aspects of this object that we're looking, if we look at it more carefully.
Yeah, Tani, indeed, but Tamu show gone the Shijab, Tig on the Takanjong, Robin Abjatsu, Tig on like a chick mare.
And then when we get into the level that we go very deeply into looking at this object, then the previous thing that we saw about in the coarse level, in the superficial level, it's not going to play a role anymore. It's not going to be there anymore. This coarse, simple, superficial aspect.
Yeah, this so Karasin also pay some language in Zama Mindrava. Kori Mandrava. Rabbi Namshang Kuri Tidan, Chamu Namshang Kuri, Sachan Rimason Petka, or
So it's going to happen that the way of the explanations on a superficial way, on a coarse way, it's going to be completely different, very different from the way that we're going to explain things when we really try to explain them in a deeper, in the most deep way.
But indeed, Geshe Kablaya, you're Chipulaya, and it Tawa Rabani Kachet, Yobanajing, that Tanki Koranga, subject Kora Yichenga Gamlayan, Tinu, Tarakio at the Haku prison.
Then, for example, for every object, we're going to have this way of explaining both in a superficial way and also in the deepest way, in the more intimate way. And also there's going to be a difference with the subject, the person that is looking, in the level also of course, subject and subtle subject, subtle way of looking.
Teleyan, yeah, Kurumba, Mambo Che, you at the Haku, Samlo Rumba Ganaya, Rabbi Tata, and he could Tavi Ganaya, Kandis Tatori.
And then also there are going to be many stages explaining how the subject can approach this object from the coarse level and gradually to a more ultimate sense, into a more subtle way of understanding this.
Yeah, Tati, Joadi. Tiwa Len Tata Shire and the Menamishi.
I don't know if this is answering any question, but that's it.
On Monday, we talked about the moral ethics as a basis for our path.
Mhm,
And now we are talking about the motivation to listening.
mhm.
So I see sometimes a conflict in real life. Let's say my job is brewing beer,
Okay,
yeah? And one of the moral ethics is like non-intoxication.
okay.
So I can say I work in this job and I don't drink. I never touch the alcohol, but I still know that we produce the alcohol and it makes other people not following the moral ethics. So is there a conflict? Should I, like, for example, consider changing the job?
Okay.
Or,
Bina
You know what I mean?
pijik shabaina kira. Kutsusonge. Bina
Yeah.
kutumasong. Yes. Pijik shabaina bina kasanga so tsutim ishi nang shingde. Gyochen koyore. And yanto dangaran so yang kulong sampo jik yang gyochen koyore. Pijik shabaina bina nga arak likung jikla nga lik lekachena. Ani di tsutim don tumpa mare. Tumpa mare bina nga arak tungna. Arak tungna di yapo yomare jawa. Ani betinang nga arak tungme. Arak tungme. Inaya nga lekachena ani mishen pa jinge kurang so aku kap teyo. Na kurang so raksi chagire ani arak tungire ni nge di lekung di nang nga lekachena di yongire. Di dening nga lekachen pa jik tseo di gangel repe. Di nyokta yorepe di lega di chena.
Yes, in the Tindin Yoda, Sani Maris.
Sani ne yomare.
Tin Yoda Maris, Penada, Tindi Chagantona, Penana, Casicano Lole, Zotation like a chash. Lole.
Yes.
Lole, certainly like a chash out there. Lole. Lole is what in unto marry. Lole is had unto marry, none to the cook and his pecutama. Pena Lole Chiso, Lole is a chasha. Kati nanga tiso sama lole gana chola ta peti gana temo pet duri ni setende ta chikar tingi nontere mato lole nontre tiso so pecho karta mata.
In my opinion, there is absolutely no mistake in doing this job. In my opinion, let's say, for example, that you work in a factory of computers. And then you cannot say that it's a mistake to make a computer. But let's say your customer, he buys a computer and then he spends this whole day wasting his time in a computer. So he's also getting, he's not being benefited. It's also a fault for him. But the fault is in how he's using this, how the customer is using. I don't think it's a fault, in the job that you mentioned.
Yeah, tinjo petinjo de korangi tanda kase chik arazo sesh na lega lego chasha. Ara yabo chik tongtang shinge zun choten le pe penga do yanko. Tai ko ara chiu mare sama kanere sel kibachina kunwe ta tenkiro.
And let's say, for example, in what you said, working in an alcohol factory. If you get exactly the right method, the right way of drinking alcohol, then it can be beneficial for the health of someone. It can get to help someone in some cases. And
Ine ko pejo ta machina samando karine.
and but if you don't know how to use anything, any food, anything that you eat can become something that's going to harm you if you don't know how to apply this to your life.
Ina tambo lega che kable ninde le kat chine michilo no ba che chete sam kalon kana tenandres.
But then, of course, if you're in this job and you're thinking, I'm going to harm these people, I'm going to sell it, I'm going to be harmed, then that's a mistake.
Ya te lega karjilena. Chichina cho lega de pasho del medal no chit to me separes. Ina choro kolongani ta peti pasasares.
But then even if you're working a job that you don't really can harm other people, but you have this thought, that's also a mistake, even if you cannot harm anyone.
Ya de un de so kolong sama kore se te tere lega kara lena ko chi shambala no chiaro. Tindi tande menjo so kolong na na de me. Kachano chala de kara pecho tamadang.
Yeah, so the thing is having a clean motivation, a pure motivation is going to be doing a work that it's not going to be to harm other people. And yeah, that's not going to have a relationship. It's not to harm other people, basically. Not just about the thing of whatever you're doing per se.
Yeah.
It's independent from your thoughts.
Yeah, ni tio de terminals.
Anyone has any? I think I'm so
Okay. Yeah, then it was well seen, but Tantandi Dishitrix. Tanti Kandares on the Taki Ganglia, Kandichin Gores. Tanti Kablia, Taki Nibatan and Reva is Chagre, Tantani. Sama Gores, Tinandreva de your Dishitrix.
So now we're going to the second part of our explanation here. So first, now we were saying how to listen. And here we're going now to the 6 recognitions. You can translate like this, the 6 recognitions. And this is going to have a relationship to this topic of having a positive motivation, a positive way of thinking when you approach listening or studying.
So nepapte condition by Monson Coresi, so nepap segurata. Tandin a condition ores, thing once a check. And that Choron Carre, condition ores.
So now here it's going to be these 6 recognitions. They're about identifying your current state, right? They're about identifying how you're approaching this activity. Yeah. What's your current state when doing this?
Tandi nepam tandi kable chorang nepap kariyores yamte ting aso chi zipo nepap kati shewo maris samlo nepap la kariyores.
So here we're not talking about what's your current situation, for example, in your body, like what you're wearing, etc. This is how you're approaching this mentally with your thoughts.
Di kable tanga choga maso samlo nepap la kariyores ti she. So di gangla tamdan di trick.
So what is the explanation here is talking about what is the situation of your mind right now? What is the situation of your mind when approaching studying or listening?
Yeah, take kable ya tanga so samlo ne pa kaji on de samlo de kati na ma sun chuk cho ta de ma sun nyam nyong yori pe nam sa ji kondo sa cho simba jo na cho gana ga cho pe taram sa nam shin ro.
So usually the situation of our minds, they're similar to the weather of the Ramsala. So they're similar in the sense that they're very easily swayed by conditions. So very easily swayed by negative emotions too. So when we get angry, when we meet a condition to get angry, we get angry. Or when we meet a condition to be excited, then we get very excited. So usually our minds in this not stable position. because of the negative emotions.
야, 딘데 여기 가블에 맞아 삼로드 배 지, 가르서 좀 면조 많이 봐. 다 가르에서 근데 삼로드 배 네바 내장식 미치나 나초초 남사 배 미카시즈 보배 교보이나 남사 나초초 지 가나이나 때스 나초초를 차르 딘데 맞아 삼로 네바드 배 딘데 특초초.
So in the similar way, for example, there are many people, their health is not so good. So when you don't have a good health, anything that happens is going to make you it's going to make you sick. Yeah, when you're like this. So in the similar sense, our minds can be like this. Because of this situation, very easy to be swayed.
어디 짐생 단단디 담보데 가르세나 라니나 네바다 디시자 거래서. 또 소소 삼로 네바드 배 가르서라다 직 텔레야 뉴모다 딘데 나사 배 mam보지요 삼삼 그 삼로 담고 그랬어.
So because of this, the first recognition is going to be seeing yourself as a sick person or a patient. Here in the sense that the negative emotions, you have the recognition that negative emotions are present in your mind.
야양 데칼이양 조직니양 네바나진 그 살로 당거라랑디 양 수수베트 그 교보시오시다. 양 베타데 춘인도 요사 말에 삼삼 그 디니까지도 말했어.
But if you're thinking, okay, I'm a sick person, and you think, oh, poor me, and if you get like this, thinking in a very negative lenses, that's not okay. That's not the point.
조직니 어서 치소설에 준 여바도 소소 하관나양 준디 어서 문제 지을 베가래요.
We can know many times. We can know that there are faults, there are mistakes inside our mind, but to actually identify this can be so hard. It can be very hard.
양 삼삼을 소소 직벌의 문제 지나양 미직인의 랭게노트 지사세 랍거나 자니 랍토고 말레라고 소소인 전조도 만들바 소소 몰레체 소소 코너 직부대 가블 이나 미잉의 랭게노트 지면도도 지도 그랬어.
And also many times we can accept, we can realize that we have some mistakes, but it's very hard. For example, if you go to someone else and to review these mistakes or to let the person know. So many times we try to pretend that we don't have these mistakes or these faults in our mind.
야, 다대용디 다 간다 가르세 담보디 소소 맞서 삼로디노 눈치페 mambo 연조 준 mambo 연조 딘디가 소소 네법페 나바나신 삼박 삼로디 여바지자고 담보디 고르.
So the first thing here is going to be realizing and identifying and accepting there are many mistakes in my way of thinking. There are many mistakes in my mind. There are many faults with my inner life. And this is going to be having the recognition, setting the recognition of you as a sick person or as a patient in this context.
다 딘데도 정디 다 딘디가 다직 소소 삼로디 주지르다야야. 야지다야야 마직 아니 남자 동기 shum마와세 혼데 다강터치 곰근납자이나다 카리나 소설로 정르름바이나 딘디우 마톤샹케가 다치 라마인 조리 카리나 다치 투서 참마디 소설의 삼로 중기 멤버나시 섭섭.
And then the second recognition is going to be regarding the person that is going to help us to leave this state that we have recognized in the first recognition of sickness. And this can be maybe a lama or a teacher or a yonakari shimpa.
샴바카리나 소설 로봇 공모이나 되그레스 그리고 카리나.
We can think of a therapist, psychologist, or a friend. So recognizing these people as doctors in this context, as doctors, is going to be the second recognition.
다이나양디 다치 소설 내바인 바치 멤버시와 차샤 디니 와서 벤토 말에 다 가르고레송디 대 민주체 맹크체 메지고로 맨디 맨나진 그다다 가르는 저거마 아니 남도 나셔야 돼 그저거마 아니 로정식 제셔야 돼 맨나시 자치고 좀 고그랬어.
And then, but it's not beneficial if in the room there is a patient and there is a doctor and that's it. Just these two recognitions, they're not enough. So the third one is going to be identifying, can be the advices or also the study or whatever is being said as the medicine, identifying these teachings, these words as the medicine.
야, 다 멤버 소소 네바 임바 소소 문제체 대 멤버지 중에 소소 심금이야 주지당기 멤버지 봐 차샤 고소마 람도 나야 대한 거는치 당원에 제가 좀 벤토마 튼준테니 냠len 벤 메인진 메인 사고라 메지 키와 좀 벤토마 테마직 메네 좀 마이 메도 준테니 사고나시 냠len 치고
And then you identify, you accept your condition right now as having these mistakes, as being a sick person. You accept that the person that is helping you as a doctor, and you also accept what the person is saying, or you accept the words or whatever as the medicine. Is that enough? That's also not enough, because if you just accept this and if you just get this medicine, it's not enough to treat a disease, to treat a patient, a sick person. So you also need to have the recognition that you need to take this medicine not once, not just twice, but many times, and you need to have some perseverance when engaging in this, in your treatment with the doctor.
어디 가면 단단 디기 단단 가서 직 소소 로 장야 단남람 그런 거 뭐고 송샤츠 직 테마직 참아야 봐 소소 강라 강투득 직야 냠렌다 디강리야로 경치 고르세 어디 지바디 조데 랍자
So the main thing here of this fourth recognition is when you're studying, for example, here the Lam-Rim, you're going to go through each presentation, each chapter. It's not just about just listening to the chapter and getting to know what this chapter is saying. You also need to go back at it and you need to think about it and you need to apply yourself many times to each thing with this perseverance.
타이난 디시트 배 백기침보시 문서 다치 백기침보시 차고 버렸어 대 간르진 개침보 차그래서 내가 망보진 거 소소소소 대스가 나저 배침보 열었어
These four, they're identified as something very important to have these four recognitions. And why is that? Many times because of the pride or arrogance that can come to us.
Yeah. 진리 소소 나저 침보용데 대 소소 내법식으로 대스 마빠야를 백칼에 가버려 소소 통보식 돈노
If you have this arrogance or this pride, then it's very hard for you to lower yourself to this first recognition, to lower yourself to this situation of a sick person.
야야 소소 지기 대 가르레스용데 단단디 가블에 소소 삼로 내법데 대스 칼로르다 네바 나시세운데 대스 콜로 쩐당 틴디 요바당 대용 쥐어라 샴바지를 대용 거야 대소 근데 쉣 그렇지는 나르게 좀 용케지나 텔tin 루마레라오
So it's very hard for someone who has this arrogance or this pride, first of all, identifying and accepting, okay, I have this situation in my mind, I have these mistakes, I have these things. And also it's hard for them to accept that they need to rely on someone else. So seeing someone as a doctor is also hard if you have arrogance or pride.
삼삼내 가서 소소 가서 다 틴디 샴바지 가서 소소 삼로된 네반도 임방 원선지야 삼설이 약속지 건데요래 배나지 양은 소소를 끝까지 되나 끝까지 되는데 신이 원선 도도 끝까지 못해배대 더 소소도 시스강의 샴바지 시야를 년고메 샴바지도 거 끝까지 되는데 신이 샴바지 록바 샴바지 가서 펜도 챙게 싸치무이 방원세시도 삼상와서 대단 메세냠냠 배모
We have many experiences in our life, moments in our life where it's much easier to have these recognitions. It's usually when we meet with problems, with issues in our lives. If you don't have any problem, everything is going okay, then we don't feel the need to go to talk to someone, to ask for advices. But if we meet a problem, and then it's much easier to accept this recognitions.
야, 근데 네 거때는 내담 제도 담보 상제 담보 맞추 소이 겁이야. 담보 뎀바시세 소데. 뎀바시 담배 담보 소야 돼. 뎀바시 소야 돼. 가르소 요래서 근데 단단 네가 네 아니 가서다 내는 시자 소데. 다 딩가 뎀바 그치죠. 내는 시자서 네 딩가 뎀바들. 뎀바 담보 딩가 네 나는 시체 내지 저 방자 내띠 제치고 저대 방아요래서 저대 가르에서 근종세 어디 가셔됐어 배 대담보 송샤요래서
So yeah, so Buddha Shakyamuni, when he first got enlightened, And the first time that he opened his mouth to give a teaching, so the first teaching that he gave was about the Four Noble Truths. And when he was talking about this, it was in a similar way. For example, the first of the Four Noble Truths is going to be the truth of suffering, which is seeing the disease. And the second truth is going to be the truth of origination, which is recognizing the causes of the suffering, which are going to be negative emotions and karma.
Yeah, and never you okay, don't you?
Yes.
That ne she just that ne de tambo quarantine never name but moshi yores quit sosolia. Susaloya po tana the dinger de nasano shimba susu moshi yores tambo to shit the
So the first thing that he was explaining is that if you analyze well, if you think about it, then you can identify the suffering that you have as a disease.
And then she just the name but she told us the name but she had some then she ja kushi yonjo agwe. The then she ja then she had some pento mari karchi was neki duty. Neki get a punch in back.
So then these sufferings, these sicknesses, explaining the First Noble Truth, they're also called as things to be known, things you need to identify. What is the purpose of you needing to know about all these sufferings, all these sicknesses and problems? It's because of the Second Noble Truth, which is also known as the things to be abandoned, because these things have a cause and they need to be abandoned.
So ni ma chig na le chi showing at na sa do ni mai na sam lo gang de simba ma chia tro de ko samson pe chi po ro yo do samson de si kare na simba tik de tro so sama de a so kare kara ko go re se na de so na sa ji so sam so le ya no jing ke ne sa ma so zi bo le chi ma do so na and I say chung se le gro ma do so yang na chi e la pa kang ba do ko ge chi te se dap shang na te nam sa nga sen na sa de gon so to do ina sa lo gang da sa de te lo chi mo se to mo do.
So to put in a very coarse and a very superficial example, let's say, for example, we are walking our day-to-day life, we are living our day-to-day life. Some days they're very happy. Some days we just flow through the day and it's okay. Some days our mind is not as easy flowing, it's not as happy. Some days it's a bit agitated. So the thing is to identify these things as if it was really a sickness, something, a suffering that is plaguing us. For example, if we have, I don't know, something in our body that's harming us, let's say there's a thorn here, maybe we identify this as it's not normal, it's something that to be removed. So in a similar way, you start identifying all these unhappy states of mind, all these uncomfortable states of mind as something that you can eventually abandon.
Pena zikbo gang le nga so chi ta ina dap chun re so na tin kan ri chong song se yo nga tin dap song se nam se ti ju de wen ze nam se nga so dap de o kum shi yo ina yang sa lo gang le nga so chi chin tik de an ro ina chi kare na semba ma cha ro ina ta de kan ri chong ina se de nga so ciel pe de o mare.
And for example, we have already very strong the habit of identifying where the outer harms came to our body. For example, let's say we hit our knees somewhere and we feel this pain in the knees, and someone asks, oh, how this pain came about? And you can easily identify, oh, I hit my knees in the table this morning. But sometimes there comes a feeling where we don't feel quite okay in our minds, and it's hard to know exactly where this is coming from. What are the causes for this?
Yeah. What they on the samlo gangling also chimakia ta chi kangan ro sama te mishamba ji kachi tikmare chiti karchin chongsa ko te so nyawa shira ma ta mishamba chol kachi te ma ta zibo gangshi chi mando yana te karchi so namsa ko tiong so len de ja ngoni tadik du chi dik to.
And when we have these things and these feelings and we are trying to identify the causes, it's not something to go asking to other people what's causing this. It's your experience, it's your inner experience. And when you hit your knees, and you don't need to later ask someone what happened. So these are things that you can identify inside yourself.
다 돈도 되는 대응데 다 담보가 쭉 semba 나래 된지 강간 되시오나 어디 나산도 인서 섬식 수수 원선체 나산도 인랍사데 소소 네파로 원서 제사리 슈라
Mucho tsare.
코 나사시리 라운데
그래서
뭐
이게
예상로 나산도 라운데 소소 네파 다랑 원선 제거 슈라
So basically, in brief, it's recognizing these unhappy states of mind, is suffering as sicknesses. And if you can accept that you have sicknesses in this sense, then you accept yourself as a sick person. You have this recognition
야
naturally.
텐데 상로 테스 중요데 테스 코 원선 도요나 특히 그 가르치는 중이나세요 대배 뭐 정도 그 배게 좀 있잖아 대원수 제토는 된지와 당해도 됩니다 된지와 당생인데 낭비 따르면 가시 단다 소소를 강가 최찬조대 맞수 가리나 삼론 특사는 특산조대 특사를 때 소지 잡도야 말다 대나 마음바 된다고 말이야 어디까지 지그래서
And then after we have identified all these agitations of the mind or all these uncomfortable states of mind, then it becomes very important for us to start thinking of why this comes about, what are the causes for this? And then after we can identify the cause, then we can start to think, okay, is there a way for me to treat this? Is there a way for me to make this inexistent in a sense? This suffering that you're experiencing right now, this thing that you're identifying, this is not the thing to be eliminated. This is a suffering that you're already experiencing. So this process is going to be to prevent future creations of the suffering. The suffering is already created, but now we need to prevent the sufferings to come in the future too.
돈도 거를 생각하는 것도 소소래다 강에서는 등간도 시켜요나 티 문tun이 마요와 티까지 시고 티 마음발에 된다고 뭐좀 된 참치도야 티까지 시 그래서
So the thing here is to break the cycle. So you have a suffering now that you identify, okay, how I break the cycle, how I break the flow of the causes that are bringing about the suffering in my life.
뭐 된다고 제 가을에 다 가르고래서인데 어디 가래 가통게 네 지남자 된샤야 돼 단다 메나시데 돼 메로 고 때려야 고 곰리 곰니 님보 파틴 당그런 바시로 제 메로 제 다띵 이기린 볼이야 띵고야 돼 menjiren bosa kwato dikachet tande di kabla tsuti
아니 영가 스쿠라.
tanda soso kanga nishona soso kanga de ta maso tsamale ta chiksen semle semakyo ro de yongwar ta dini semakyo de kasena nyore chiktan toye tamnam ta soso gomjago yona karena dini tamlan tonsha de mendo dress mi ta mende jerin boshi sa ko resi te tandandi
And then basically here the meaning is what is going to make this happen for you? So the sickness, you have to change the causes that are bringing about these states of minds. So what is going to bring this about is what is being identified here in the third recognition as the medicine. So are the stages of meditation or different ways of thinking, different ways of habituating your mind. And the fourth recognition is going to be, okay, you have identified the medicine, you have the medicine, and now you need to go through the treatment. You need to apply this for some time until the end, until it's done, and maybe I need to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
No, I asked him to explain a little bit in English. I go very fast. Otherwise, I cannot
I
concentrate.
can't believe that.
You have any question? Do you have any questions?
I have a question, maybe. So recognizing the sickness comes before recognizing yourself as a patient. Okay. And then how would you explain this? So in the West, a lot of our habituating behavior is to consider the doctor as the savior
Mm.
and kind of giving responsibility to that doctor. How would you explain the second recognition of recognizing a lama therapist or someone to help to guide as a doctor without like considering that the Western mind has this tendency to grasp on like the doctor as the savior?
Mm. It's good question.
Too good.
Yeah, too good. I don't know how to explain, especially in English. Maybe,
Back.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
try
yeah.
it.
I can.
Yes, you can.
So what was the question? Did you understand the
Yeah,
question?
you
I'll try to summarize.
Okay.
So we have a Western tendency to view the doctor as the savior. So how can we explain the second recognition so that we don't? So for that tendency to be kind of eliminated and not for it to be like, oh, the doctor is my savior, but it's kind of like
Mhm.
part of the treatment itself, like part of the process.
Random çok langer und so dice gigere che non mi va garan so la jok pa chitu con le gat sama chegere ra con garan la mente tegere ani garan so di tong ani di dabore ani di kan just tokore how to
Yeah, how to like still give you the responsibility to like the process and not just see the doctor as
이래
like
가ran
the
so di
savior.
kin kiegere chegere did ni member tipu la faccia io Maria di grandi di battissimo no
Yeah, yeah. That call it any Tumbe Carson Share. Any the Niji Tovajana Poman is actually.
Nidi togal
Ani Sanje Korangi Nyamyonde, Korangajilla Tanda Chitiada, Tichi. You are the Chulma Katitesha.
So what did the teacher, the Buddha, said about this? So there is a quotation by the Buddha where he says, all my realizations, I don't have the power to give them to you.
Yeah. Ani Chikarla is in Yongi Tachasena, Ani Chorazon Galamashani, Josuduba, Gamitama Seto Mariteto.
All your problems, all your negative emotions, everything that you need to clear up, I don't have the power to come with my hand and wash them with water.
Ta Kargores only, Chinu Demba to be Troranges. Sanje Korangi Dinema, Nathan the Demba Shedon, Demba Ni, Tindi with Namshashi Dunshayores. This is so Yamnichi, so Rangani, Kumbaya.
So the only power I have, the only thing I can do for you is explaining the Four Noble Truths, two truths, basically the way that things actually exist. I can explain to you, and all the rest of the work is up to you to do. Everything else.
Yeah, Chorangi, Chorangi, King do Ramato. Tandash Antashambayo Maris.
You are your own master.
Yeah. Chick de Karayorzana. Dani Dakin Gwen City. So Gwen master. And the young church in Saladan Choran diaries. So
That's from one side you can say that we are our own masters, and from another side we can say that you are your own enemy.
Takarayorzana Choranga Yabo Cheda Maches. Let on Gamba Chibala Dani Dak Pamboins. Choranga Yabo Cheo, the Mezede, Choranga Pambo Cheta Ramato, Mishamba Sikang Chone, the Prupchito. Choranga Pambo.
So you're your own boss in the sense that if you decide to act in a good way,
Choranga Yabo Cheo, Choranga Ticha Cheo Mete, Sihakore, Choranga Hakores. Mishamba Sikang Haku Mares.
So who is going to know if you're going the good direction, the bad direction? You are going to know, and you have the power to go to these two sides. Yeah.
Oh, they know. They don't remember Dani talk Pomboy. What that there? That don't know Carson Yuzana. So, any so, Tanda Theatre. So, one's in the Cheto Cores. So, ya. 아니 그렇다 소소리야 아니 가르니바요 바디 원슨 고그레스 티까지 소소리 누가 가르요 봐 소소리야 다디 가면 산지 릭스에 시에티리
that's
릭스에 다디 고
the kerangozin chetovire.
어때지 도 그래서 소소 디 가르소 소소리 이치치 고그레스
So in short, also the meaning of this is also saying that you need to identify
야
you
저런
need
스트렌드
to identify your power, your potential. There is something they call that we are all from the family of the Buddha. We all have this Buddha potential. So this is saying that you need, it's necessary to trust yourself, to trust in your capacity to do the work.
삼삼레 라니 란시세 시텐데 대선 배경도 다데 간레나 self awareness 야도
Yeah.
어디백기 좀 그래서
And this is what is called also self-awareness. This is something very important, self-awareness.
다데 라니 란시세 데 시제를 까블이야 소소가 즉 physical level 때 운티코레 저 가르즈나 소소가 소에 삼로네 법데 간데시오레시 띵고시고
And when we talk about self-awareness, yeah, we can be aware of our body. We can be aware of how our body exists, but we also are talking about being aware of the mind, being aware of the qualities of your mind, the potentials of your mind, etc.
마데온데 다테선서 강한 뭐지 소소소리 이치미 소소소리야 시카르스로 이치마도 소소 마다 강에 menjo세 시도 진디그 샴바치를 파 땡데야 샴바치가 직마치는 나랑 같이 도움 말이지 디삼로도 대상
There are many problems that come nowadays because people cannot trust themselves, and so they try to find another place to deposit the responsibility or someone else to help them in this sense.
야야 된다고 다치 가르그 살로 당고 되세나라 다다치가 소치기요 지폴라 만도다 다카지고 나사 딘디만 보신 것도 저당가 소치 멤버도 땡고 이바체 멤버 자자자 탐바 멤버요 즉 세나 내사 상마가 존나서 상마 자자자 탐바 멤버 지보 차토리나 도마르
And then also with the bodily ailments, the sicknesses of the body, yeah, we need to go to a doctor. We need to get a treatment from someone, an expert. But we cannot say, I think, 100% that 100% of the sicknesses we can just give them to the doctor and the doctor can make them disappear. We cannot say it's like that, the relationship with the doctor.
어디서 니용아 맹게디시리도 베나 멤버 람도 가르치는 소송원이 딜람도 노시들 그마치나 제보나 세네 잡토금도 테마도 된가서 삼로네 법에 딜레자 상제다다 즉 줄그리스 마체베베 랍자만 보시 소소소는 냠레 마치나
For example, with many sicknesses, if you don't follow the advices of the doctor, then there is no hope. In the same way, with the side of the mind, if you also don't follow the advices, if you don't practice what you're listening, then there's also nothing that can be done.
야, 대운이 다즉 소소가 당보도와 당보인 것도 당보 소소로 병치 검자 가리나 당보 샴바실을 테스팅 고래 거의 말해. 제름베 소소 텐조토나 소소 안에 삼로리아 니식치르치르 안에 식치르치르레 가올라 티니 소소만이 배 망보시기야 시용하다 소소만이 제토에 망보신 그랬어.
Usually in the beginning, especially in the beginning, when you need to get the studies, you need to understand what you're doing, you need to get this information, and then you need to rely on someone to teach you, to help you. But the more you progress on the path, the more you go, the more you get all the tools necessary for you to do the work by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
If anyone has any other question, anything to say? Otherwise, we stop here. It's 5 o'clock. No.
Yeah. Okay.
No question.
Yeah.
the notes. of the class.